Good evening, everybody. Namaste, Miss Deepa, Miss Sarita Warrior, Biju S. Pillai, and all the enthusiastic educators. Biju sir, are we ready to introduce our moderator?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Please.
Good evening, Mr. Abdul, Mrs.
Good
Sarita,
evening,
and
good evening.
Mr.
Yeah.
Biju.
Good evening. Good evening, Deepa ma'am.
Ms. Sarita Warrior holds a master's degree in economics from the prestigious Fergusson College, Pune. She has done her B.Ed in English and Economics and is currently working with Nalanda Public School, Mumbai, where she teaches English, Economics, and Financial Markets Management. She is an avid reader and a published author. She has rendered her services as moderator for multiple occasions and is the chief editor of Transformers e-magazine. Hearty welcome, Ms. Sarita Warrior. The stage is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Biju sir, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening to everyone. So, are we good to go?
Yes, of course, please.
A very good evening, everyone, and warm greetings from all of us here at Extra Mile Education and Training. Extra Mile is a prolific training platform by the founder of BTAG, Dr. Abdul Salam. It aims to empower the educators fraternity across the country by providing online as well as on-site training on demand. With its ever-expanding pool of resource persons and subject experts, Extra Mile reaches across to educators all over India, as well as the Gulf countries, as we go about on our mission to bring about educational excellence. I extend a warm welcome to our program director, Dr. Abdul Salam, our respected resource person for the day, Ms. Deepa Dharmapuri Shivaduraya, respected Mr. Biju S. Pillai, and all our dear participants who have joined us this evening. It is indeed a pleasure to have each one of you as an integral part of this webinar as we go about learning more about teaching resourcefully to make the teaching learning process beneficial as well as rewarding for our students. It is a great feeling to be present here today, and I extend my humble gratitude to Dr. Abdul Salam for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Education and the process of teaching and learning is undergoing changes every day. As teachers, we are increasingly taking on the role of facilitators in the entire process. Being resourceful educators involves achieving goals by finding and using the things you have at hand and even creating them when we don't have anything at hand. It involves creating a dedicated space in the classroom that's stocked with useful tools and materials, a resourcefulness nook where students can experiment, overcome challenges, and make connections, thus enriching their experiences and making learning more meaningful and enjoyable. So how do we go about this? This is exactly the journey all of us are going to embark upon in the next hour or so, where our remarkably talented resource person, Ms. Deepa, will guide us through the ways and means by which we can all be resourceful educators. Before we begin with today's session, there are a few things I'd like to quickly brief you about. Switching on your device cameras is optional. However, any query in the midst of the session can be conveyed through the meeting chat box. In order to have an interactive experience, you may note down your queries and ask them at the end of the session. A resource person will be happy to dispel your doubts. Please click the raise hand button and wait for your name to be called out for asking your query. The participants will have the opportunity to receive the certificate only after filling up the certificate and feedback form, the link for which will be shared at the end of the session. Please stay connected till the end. I would now like to welcome our program director, Dr. Abdul Salam. Dr. Salam is a distinguished CBSE resource person and master trainer. He has been associated with NABET, National Accreditation Board for Education and Training, Government of India, as assessor. Dr. Salam is the principal of Vidyarha Yelahanka, Bangalore. He is the founder and CEO of BTAC, that is Bharat Transformers Academic Group. Sir, it is an honor to have your gracious presence this evening. I request you to take over and deliver the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Sarita, and good evening once again to everybody. Very happy to connect with a lot of educators across India. I could see in the chat box mentioning their school and their states, and of course from abroad as well. So it's a pleasure being connected across the globe. Well, thank you once again, everybody. And this platform has helped us a lot, not only getting associated, connected with a lot of educators, but also to introduce, to present very talented resource persons who have been, in the field of education, serving the country. And now we are proud to present Ms. Deepa DS, a very talented resource person to you, who will be giving lots of inputs today. Thank you so much, Ms. Deepa, for offering this wonderful topic. We chose this topic as teachers encounter a lot of chaotic situations in the classroom, especially with regard to hyperactive students, discipline issues, unmanageable classrooms. So I saw this topic is very useful because that is the only solution for classroom mismanagement. So if we encounter any problem, any discipline in the classroom, that is because of the students not being engaged or the lesson not being interesting. We are all good teachers, definitely, no doubt. We have been serving the students. But what makes an effective teacher? There is a great difference between a good teacher and an effective teacher. We all should be effective teachers. To become an effective teacher, we need a lot of, weapons with us. They are the resources. Resources are aplenty around us at our fingertip. Only thing is a kind of, commitment and spare some time to prepare, bring in a lot of resources to the classroom, and we will not be able, facing any issues, and we will be feeling that the time was insufficient. So students will like the teacher and the concepts are imprinted in their minds. So I take this opportunity to congratulate all those who have joined us today. Wish you all the best. Wish you Deepa ma'am, and let us listen to her. Have a great evening and have a great session. Thank you. Over to Sarita ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to welcome Mr. Biju S. Pillai, another distinguished educator with many years of experience in the field of education. He has served as principal in many prestigious schools. Currently, Mr. Biju is the Honorable Principal of Sri Gokulam Public School, Trivandrum. Sir, we are indeed honored to have you amongst us today. I request you to please felicitate the gathering with your kind words, sir.
Thank you, Sarita ma'am. Most respected Director, Dr. Abdul Salam sir, today's resource person Deepa ma'am, and all other educators on the dais. Hearty welcome to all to the Extra Mile Education platform. As our director told, today's topic is a very wonderful topic, allowing students to be comfortable in setting up their goals and to grow and study safely in a crucial situation. So teaching is certainly a challenging profession. So bringing all the suitable knowledge to a new generation of students can be comfortable when the teaching learning process is happening comfortably. So creating a healthy environment which celebrates or which make the child feel that I'm comfortable and feel a sort of joy in learning. That is the total outcome where the teacher is completely successful. So different types of classroom situations whereupon the teacher sometimes may not be able to handle the classes. Such situations, how can we handle it? So creating a healthy environment which celebrates the joy of learning, therefore, can go to a long way of helping educators build the connections with their students. So it's a very important topic. So let us hear from our great scholar Deepa ma'am how we can tackle all these situations. So wishing all the Keralites, Malayalis a happy Vishu, advanced Vishu also. Wishing all the educators a very good evening, and we'll gain more knowledge how to handle the classroom situation and to be a wonderful teacher in the minds of all the educators, all the children. How we can see, let us hear from Deepa ma'am. Thank you, Sarita ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay sir. I absolutely love the usage of the term celebrating learning. That is so important these days. We really need to celebrate learning each and every day. Thank you so much for that, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, now we shall proceed to the highlight of today's webinar. Today amidst us, we have Ms. Deepa Dharmapuri Shivaduraya, who is a most welcome new member to the fraternity of educators who are all proudly associated with Extra Mile Education and Training. Ms. Deepa is a passionate educator with a rich experience spanning 15 years in this field. She has completed her NTT, Nursery Teachers Training, MTT, Montessori Teacher Training, BA, BA, and ME. She holds a post-graduation in TESOL as well. She started her career as a teacher and has worked as coordinator and teacher trainer in CBSE schools. Many successful teachers have been fortunate to have been trained by her. She has also served as the president of an NGO in Bangalore and contributes her time and efforts to the academics of underprivileged children and personality development of youngsters. She considers herself to be a lifelong learner and very generously shares her learnings with fellow educators. Ms. Deepa, on behalf of everyone present here today, I welcome you and request you to take over the proceedings for the evening. Over to you, Ms. Deepa.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarita, and for the wonderful introduction. Thank you, Mr. Biju, and thank you, Mr. Abdul Salam, for creating this wonderful platform that is Extra Mile. The name Extra Mile is actually close to my heart, and I can relate to it. That's because learning journeys and learning sessions are there at present and will continue to be there. But we educators walk the extra mile only when we implement the learning in our classrooms. So with this as aim for today's session, let's dive directly into the objectives. I will be sharing the screen now. Okay, dear educators, before we start, I would like to say that if there is any technical issue, please bear with us, and let's make this session as interactive as possible through participation. Participation is the key, and I'm sure all of you agree to it. So whenever I ask a question, I would like all of you to answer in the chat box or unmute yourself and answer. It doesn't matter who answers first and who answers next. So with that, we have two objectives for today's evening session, that is significance, types, and usage of teaching learning resources. The next one is understanding and implementation of correction techniques. I have an interesting question for all of you. Which material is called the the living textbook? Can you all answer in the chat box, please? Or you can also unmute yourself and answer.
Unmuting is disabled, ma'am. They can interact with the chat box.
Okay.
Participants are requested to place your statements. We can read it out from the chat box, Deepa ma'am.
All right. All right. So which material is called the living textbook? Fine. If most of you have not heard of it, the living textbook is none other than our newspaper. Right? Newspaper. Now, most of us have heard of newspaper, used newspaper as a resource. But there are something that we need to understand. In fact, many schools subscribe for newspapers for their schools, for students, and parents even pay for it. Once my husband asked my son, okay, son, we have been paying for your newspapers. So are you using them? And he said, yes, of course, Dad. All right, so what's the latest news? And his answer was this. This is how students use the newspapers sometimes. So seeing this particular picture, you may feel that the student is making mischief. But what the student is actually doing is creating an activity for himself. Dear educators, reading habit, be it in the pre-primary years or in the later years, or be it reading of storybooks or newspapers, has to be inculcated in the early years of children by showing pictures of newspaper in newspapers or by reading storybooks. But if it doesn't happen, later we'll have to make it interesting for students. So how do we get students to read newspapers? Let's focus on that. If activity is what they want, we will give them activities. For example, create a quiz out of newspapers, not by asking specific question, but by asking some general question. Question number 1, which is the article that talks about nature? Give me the gist of it. Question number 2, which is the article that talks about the election? And give the gist. These kind of questions will make students quickly run through the newspaper, read the newspaper, and jump with the answers during the quiz. Now, I want all of you to observe these two pictures carefully. And in the chat box, you can type what is the name of this activity. This is a newspaper activity. We see 2 newspaper activities here. Can you guess the names, please? Yes, I would like to see some answers in the chat box.
The answers are brochure. One answer
Okay.
has come up. Headlines in assembly.
Okay, some more answers. Well done,
Bulletins.
educators. Well done.
Collage making.
Collage making. This is a huge gathering. We want hundreds of answers, not just 4 or 5. All
Poster
right.
making.
Yes. Yes. Collage and match the headline with the article are the names of these activities. These activities can either be given individually to students or in groups, and you'll see how much they'll enjoy reading newspapers. Now that we spoke of teaching learning resources, let's learn why we need teaching learning resources. Most of us have heard of it, but we hesitate to use it. So can anyone, Mr. Anmol, can you read what is written here, please? I would be calling out some names.
Ma'am, it will be, we have unmuted the mute, the chat is on, only the chat is open, ma'am.
Okay,
They
only
will
the
not be
chat
able to
is
unmute
open.
themselves. Yes.
Yeah, fine.
So,
Then
do you
I
want
would
me
like
to read it out for you?
Yeah, sure.
If that's okay.
That is absolutely fine.
So
Mrs.
please let me
Sarita,
know
can you
where
read
you
it
want.
out?
Please let me know which one, what you want me to read out for you, ma'am.
Teaching learning resources. This para on
Yes.
teaching learning resources.
Okay. Since the physical world is the main means of conveying meaning to learners, a wide variety of teaching aids is necessary in the classroom. Use of objects along with language will make the lessons more interesting for children and get the meaning across effectively.
Yes, so that is why we need teaching learning resources. I hope all of you heard that carefully, that it is the physical world we live in. So coming up is a proverb, and there is a blank in that proverb. One word needs to be filled in, it is missing. So when you read that proverb, I want you all to think of the word that can fit into it and type it in the chat box.
Ma'am, our answers have started coming in. Most of them have written do.
Absolutely. That is the right answer. What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. So with that, we have clearly understood how important teaching learning resources are, because it will help children work with them. The school or the classroom is actually an environment, and what students need to do there is work. So that's how we get them to do it with teaching learning resources. Now let's move on to how we can procure these teaching learning materials. Mrs. Sarita, can you read?
Sure, ma'am. Procuring teaching learning material. Material can be made by you and your students, collected by you or your students, bought by you or your students.
Yes. Now there is an array of materials that you or your students can make, but I would like to focus on some popular ones today. That is, the first one is the puppet. Yes, there are many educators who may think, okay, I can explain this concept so well myself. So why do I need to make a puppet and then have puppet explain it? I would like to answer that question with another question. Now, when I talk about the program, Kaun Banega Crorepati, who is the first person who comes to your mind? Can I have some answers, please, in the chat box? Samo. Yes. Yes, dear educators, you are right. Amitabh Bachchan. Anybody could have conducted that program, but the whole of India watched it because it was conducted by the all-time favorite for generations, that is Amitabh Bachchan. Similarly, students too like being taught by some of their favorite characters through puppets at least once in a way, isn't it? And there are ways to do it too. Now, in this picture, do you see the teacher holding the puppet or the children holding the puppet? Yes, you're right. It is the children holding the puppet. After the teacher enthusiastically explains with a puppet, that it is such an attention grabber. You can have students also explain it to each other, and you'll see the magic of learning take place in class. So, Mrs. Sarita, can you read us the type of puppets that can be made
Sure,
for students?
Yeah, we have different types of puppet. The marionette puppet, the shadow puppets, finger puppets, sock puppets, rod puppets, and hand puppets.
And the method of making them can be browsed and easily be made for the students. Moving on, can you see the first picture with the fluorescent material? Can you all guess what that material is? I would like quick answers in the chat box, please.
Paper cup.
Absolutely. Very nice to have some bright educators who are quickly answering. They are paper glasses which are easily available either at home or can be procured. So this is a material where just paper glasses are stacked one behind the other and handwritten numbers are written on that. And different arithmetical operations can be done with this particular activity, and either the teacher or the students can make it easily. So more than going on giving explanations during the practice session, children can practice with this. The next material you see here is make 15. Like we have a crossword in our English For English, the students can go on circling numbers till the time they make 15 with the numbers. At the bottom, you see two new materials, which are language materials. One is just a paper where children have written adjectives that describe either themselves or their friends or their favorite character and made a small doll out of it. This is something children find very exciting. And the next material you see here is the trash kit ball. Not the basketball, the trash kit balls. So what do children trash here? Children can write adjectives and nouns and verb words, vocabulary on the paper and put it in that particular bin. So how interesting can learning be for children? Next, moving on to materials that you and your students can collect. So now in the first picture here, you can see a child is building some kind of a city with some windmills and several things. Can you guess what these materials are that the child has collected from home?
Wooden sticks,
And
egg crates,
perfect.
matchsticks,
Yes.
cartons.
Yes, those are some wonderful answers. Very good observation, educators. When these easily available materials are there, children can go on building streets to houses to cities in that. Another picture here is that of the matchsticks that you can clearly make out, and geometry is taking place there. With this small material, the teacher can go on announcing, okay, students, make a hexagon. Children make the hexagon with the matchsticks. All right, dismantle it and make a decagon. They dismantle it and make a decagon. And one after another, students go on making, and that's so exciting for students. At the bottom, you see a three-dimensional material with clay and matchsticks. That can also be done using matchsticks. Moving on, coming to pre-primary children or kindergarten or younger children, we can see some easily available materials at home. Can you guess what is object number 1? Object number 1, please.
Coconut shells,
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is coconut shells. Object number 2, it can be the wrapper of a book which has been made into an alphabet card. How about object number 3?
bottle lids are some of the that's not
Those are
object 3, I
some-
guess. Not objects 3. Object 3, educators. Are they answers are coming as shells?
Yes, it is shells. They are seashells. They are seashells. Object number 4, any kind of shells can be used. Shells of pista, shells of walnut, any shells that instead of discarding it, it can be used as a learning resource. 4, material number 4 are vegetable and vegetable peels, which can be clearly seen. And the 5th one is the lids. The bottle lids or caps that we usually throw away can be painted and used to teach colors, letters, alphabets, and several concepts for kindergartners. And this is the all-time favorite carton box that can either be used by 4th or 5th standard students to make their project work or for a stacking or building material for kindergartners. Now, the minute we talk about teaching learning resources, educators start wondering, all right, now how do we convey this to the parents? Will they really send? What if some children don't get it? Is it expensive? And there are so many things that come to the teacher's mind. But let me remind you, dear educators, we are living in the era of do and learn, and that's exactly what the parents want for their children. And if parents need to send something that is easily accessible, reasonable, available at home and in nature, if we orient them about these things in the beginning of the year, they will be more than happy to send it if correct information is sent in the diary beforehand. Moving on to materials that can be purchased. There is an array of material that can be purchased in the market, but I would like to focus on some easily accessible and reasonable ones which can be used easily also by teachers. The first one is the task cards. Set of task cards for different subjects are available. And these cards have tasks written on them, and all that the teacher has to do is distribute them to students either individually or in groups, and they will set into action doing those particular tasks. The next two are interactive posters and wall charts. I still remember taking my son to the pediatrician, and there I was amazed to see that the waiting area had many different interactive posters and wall charts, and these children who were not well were completely immersed in those wall charts. And this pediatrician actually, because of these posters, he turned out to be the favorite of not only the children, but also of the mothers. So these usually charts that are available, if carefully selected, are crystal clear. Children will be able to see and interact with them, and it will also occupy them. If it's displayed in school, children just run up to them during the breaks and they do the activity, or teacher can give 5 minutes from her lesson plan for these kind of activities too. So now that we spoke so much of teaching learning resources, let us understand about the benefits. Mrs. Sarita, can you read the benefits of
Sure,
teaching
ma'am.
learning resources?
Sure, ma'am. Benefits of teaching learning resources: motivation, use of more sense organs, clarity, direct experience, memorizing and retaining concepts, helpful in saving time and money.
Absolutely right, Mrs. Sarita. So if you happen to have, if you are on two minds, okay, should I make effort for learning resources or not? Just take the classic example of cooking. We all actually learned to cook only after we started making it ourselves, isn't it? With the same benefits. We used more of our sense organs to cook, and there was clarity in the cooking process. It was direct experience, and we retain the recipe well when we do it ourselves. And obviously, it will help in saving time and money, although ordering from Swiggy can be more tempting. Okay, once a son went to his father and saw the photo of a goddess in the house, and he asked father, how come goddess Lakshmi has so many hands? And as he was a small child, the father answered, son, she has so many of us to take care, and that's a lot of work. That's why she has that many hands. And the son said, oh really, I do have a Lakshmi in my school and she's stronger. He said, how come? Who is that? And he said, Lakshmi ma'am, my teacher. How is she stronger? He said, she does so many of us to take care, and she does all that with just two hands. Dear educators, all of us know that a teacher is a multitasker. If only a teacher can create more helping hands for herself, a teacher can turn into a super teacher for her students. So now we have explored the first helping hand, that is the teaching learning material. Let us see what are the hands a teacher can create for herself. Next one is the story. Yes, story. Now, firstly, coming to think of it, let us just imagine the textbooks of whatever material, whatever subject you're teaching. In English and probably in our Kannada textbooks, content is given in the form of stories, and children love stories. But in all the other subjects, the entire textbook is filled with information. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a student. When you walk into the classroom, if you say, okay, students, would you like to listen to a story today? The students will say, yes. Would you like to listen to a song today? The students will say, yes. But if you say, would you like to listen to information today? They'll say, no. So what I'm trying to say is, if we can only convert the content in our textbooks into a story and tell them, imagine how interesting we can make content for students. Stories can either be imaginary or it can be real life experiences. Now, I just told you about the visit to the pediatrician with my son to explain the significance of interactive posters, isn't it? Similarly, teachers can give real life example to students or create a story. So, Mrs. Sarita, can we read about story as a teaching learning resource?
Definitely, ma'am. Narrating stories. The teacher can narrate content-related stories by adapting the language to the level of the students, using gestures and facial expressions. The teacher can read content-related stories to students or give access to relevant storybooks. Creating stories, the teacher can tell imaginary stories relevant to the content.
Absolutely. And this is one of the wonderful ways for teachers to use their creativity. And when you tell that stories, you'll see how the imagination of the children start running wild. Moving on to the next helping hand of the teacher, that is using classroom as a resource room. Yes, this is a very colorful picture. Is it really possible for us to make a classroom like this? Will be the first question in the minds of educators. Let us explore. So now when you observe this picture, can you tell me what is the kind of seating arrangement you see there? Can you name it, please? You can give it any name you find relevant in the chat box. What are the kind of seating arrangement there?
Peer
Yes,
groups.
group, yeah, peer groups, group seating. Yes, yes. Round table seating, groupings. Yes, dear educators, you are right. There is seating which encourages group work, teamwork, group discussion, and several such things. Now, if you remember our classrooms, most of our classrooms have benches and desks arranged one behind the other. So how can teachers create this environment for students? It's very easy. What you can do is either take someone's help and have them arrange the benches to the periphery of the classroom. Or one very easy thing to do is even second and third standards children with some correct instruction can push the bench and arrange it in 3 to 5 minutes in the periphery of the classroom. I've got it done, and through experience I'm telling you. And this kind of periphery group seating will encourage not only group discussion, but it also creates space in between for students to do activities. It is as easy as that. What do you observe on the walls? Some quick answers in the chat box, please. On the walls, yes. What can you observe on the walls, dear educators?
Time
Of the
to
classroom.
explore. Yeah, I mean,
Activity. They are, as we discussed, some interactive posters, interactive material. You may think, okay, this is a very hi-fi classroom. Well, there is nothing like that. A very colorful KG cardboard is pasted as background, and on that is pasted children's work, interactive posters, and materials. What do you observe stacked inside the racks? Can you guess it, please? Participation is the key, dear educators. Yes, we see some activity material stacked in the racks. Now, there are schools which may not have racks. What do you do at that point of time? Well, schools do give cupboards for teachers in the classroom. If every one subject teacher can take one shelf to organize her teaching learning materials, and they can also keep it locked, as soon as the teacher says, let's do an activity, the students will be curious to know, okay, what's going to come out of that cupboard today. What can you see on the floor? of the classroom. Yes, you can see an activity mat, and even the floor can be used for so many different activities. We'll discuss that after some time. So that's about using the classroom as a resource room. And when there's a change in the environment, children get so excited, and you'll see their ideas popping up in the classroom. Yes, there is one thing that all educators dread, that is having their class scheduled immediately after the lunch break or in the last period, isn't it? Because students are either lethargic or sleepy during that time. So usually educators and teachers come fighting, I don't want to have my period in this afternoon. But whether we like it or not, we will have a few classes during that time. So during this time, why not use our creativity to wake up students, give them an activity, or change the teaching process to wake students up with enthusiasm? Let's see how to do it. Okay, now this is a picture of a castle. Assuming that we are presenting types of houses to students, how can we do it? Students are all sleepy. Now I will ask a question and I want you all to answer. I will teach you how to answer the first time. What is this, my student? What is this? What is this? And your answer must be, this is a castle and that's what it is. Okay? So I know I cannot hear you, but wherever you are seated, I want all of you to sing today without hesitation. What is this, my student? What is this? What is this? And your answer is, this is a stilt house and that's what it is. What is this, my student? What is this? What is this? This is a igloo and that's what it is. I hope you all are singing along. What is this, my student? What is this? What is this? This is a cottage and that's what it is. Well done, dear educators. An igloo, a castle, a stilt house, a cottage. Ooh la loo. These are the types of houses. Yes, this is the enthusiasm needed for educators. Don't you think this will wake up the students? Yes, I just hummed my favorite tune. You can actually teach this particular concept or any concept you want with either your favorite tune or your children's favorite tune. You can ask them also to give you a tune to sing, and you'll see the class light up, and your children will continue humming those songs even after the class is over. So now, Mrs. Sarita, let us find out about songs as a teaching learning resources. Educators, please read every word.
Miss Deepa, if you want participants to read,
Unmute.
they can raise their hands and we can unmute.
We can unmute them. Absolutely. I was just about to say that. Participants, would any one of you like to read it? We'd be happy to unmute you.
Because participation is important.
If you could please raise your hand, we'll definitely unmute you, participants. Just a minute. Yes, Priyanka, ma'am.
Yes, can I read?
Yes, ma'am,
Yes,
definitely.
please read the
Yes.
first 2 points.
Yes. Songs make it easier for the students to remember words and patterns and chunks of content. They add feeling and rhythm to the subject being learnt and improve pronunciation.
Thank you. Thank you, dear. Can
Thank you.
anyone else read the next 2 points, please?
Karpagam Annadurai, I've unmuted you. Could you please start reading?
Yes. Learners happily repeat the same structures without getting bored. Songs add a different dimension and they can be an effective and high interest addition to classroom instructions.
Absolutely. Next person can read the last and the longer point.
Anupama, ma'am.
Yes, good evening all. Can I
Evening.
start?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Yes. They can be used to teach vocabulary, listening skill, encourage discussion, increase culture and historical knowledge, highlight grammar, combine action to words, use in the background, play between lesson as a break. Thank you.
Yes, so there are so many advantages to songs. The bottom line is children enjoy them and remember them. So the best time to start anything is right now, dear educators. So plan a song in your lesson plan tomorrow itself. Moving on to the next learning resource, that is the community. Well, when we think of the reality, we are trying to teach our children about the world around them, the world outside them, within the four walls of the classroom and from a textbook. Well, that is the best we can do, but there's more that can be done. If only we can take students outdoors to the spot of their learning content, at least twice or thrice a year, it would be great for them to actually see, and their learning will turn into experience. So now you can see many pictures in the community. These are places in the community. Well, can you guess what is there in the picture, the first picture, please? You can see several pictures in one picture in the corner. You all can enter in the chat box. Yes, do I have
Holy places,
some more answers, please?
temples, monuments.
Yes, they are historical places. Yes, and someone guessed what is there in the second picture with the cows. That is the farm. We can take children to the farm, to historical places. What is the picture next to the farm? Y'all must have gone there, I'm sure. Quite a few of you have taken your children there. Which place is that?
A factory.
Okay, now I caught you all. Quite a few of you have not seen Vishveshwaraya Museum. So please go there, or maybe you were not able to guess seeing the picture. So if you have not gone or taken your students there, please do it as soon as possible. It's a wonderful place created by the government, the museum. You can see something happening in the beach below that. So what do you think students are doing? Yes.
A beach cleanup drive.
Yes. What are they cleaning? What are they taking out? Picking trash. What kind of trash mostly? Plastic. Yes. Yes, all of you are right in your own way, dear educators. It's nice to see you all interacting. Yes, students are picking out plastic. And below that, you can see a park, which is quite obvious. And next to it, the zoo. Children love, students of all age group love going to the zoo. And that next to it is a library. And above that, you can see students sowing seeds in their neighborhood to improve their community. As soon as we talk about an outing, the few questions that come to your mind is, okay, we'll have to arrange for transportation, take management support, we'll have to take permission from the parents, and safety measures have to be kept in mind. Yes, all this has to be done, but those three educational trips that you take them to will be their most memorable experience of the year. Important thing is for the teachers to be excited about it. I'm sure the management will support you. All right, now we'll play a quick game, and I want everybody, each and everybody, to play this game. So here are 8 words, and I will be displaying it only for 5 seconds. And after that, I'll give you around 10 to 15 seconds to write them down without seeing. Quickly, 5 seconds. Time up. Now, please write down. Let me see how many educators can get all the 8 words correct. Okay, time up. Now in the chat box, I want you to type the number of words that you got correct in the chat box, please. How many words were you able to remember out of 8? I don't want you to write the words, just the number of words. How many words were you able to remember? Okay. 5, 6, 7. All right. All right. Yes, I gave a very short time because we are moving ahead with the presentation. What we just now did was, I'll tell you that later on. Now, this is how students write down the key words in the first page of their chapter, isn't it? A son once went to the father and showed this to his father. And the father saw that and he said, "What are these?" And the son said, "These are key words. Ma'am has asked me to learn them." And he said, "All right, learn and write it without seeing." And the son said, "Oh God, Dad, I wouldn't have come to you if I was able to remember all these words." Then he said, "Please go ask your teacher how to learn these words and then come back to me." So as you noticed, we just played a memory game and quite a few educators were able to remember as many words as possible. So games are the center of students' lives. So let's explore games as a teaching learning resource. Mrs. Sir, okay, I would like the
participants,
educators.
if you could raise your hands, we'd be happy to unmute you.
1 point per participant, please. And it would be nice if it's not repeated and different participants can read it.
Yes. Nivedita ma'am, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Games. As a teaching learning resource, games play a central role in a child-centric lessons and make it possible for children to fully immerse themselves in learning. Most
Thank
children...
you, Nivedita ma'am.
Next point.
Yeah. Smita ma'am, you can.
Yes, ma'am. The second point, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Most children see life in terms of games, and as teachers, we actually, this is very small. 1 minute. We need to go along with the basic fact and give games a central role in our class.
Thank you, Smita ma'am. Bindu ma'am.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Games also provide a non-threatening environment for coping with new learning. When children are having fun, they are more likely to take risks, make mistakes without fearing failure.
Yes, you're right, dear educators. They take risks make mistakes without fearing failure because with games they feel at home. Isn't it? Okay. So what are the different types of games that we can give children? Now, we just spoke about a game called memory game when we want children to learn vocabulary. There are other games such as Simon Says. How many of you have played Simon Says with your children? Please raise your hand. Yes, great. Those who have played, that's really great. Those who haven't, Simon Says is a game where you can teach children phrases and different kinds of actions and several other things like Simon Says, raise your hand. Simon Says, stand up. And even different kinds of phrases can be taught with Simon Says. Children learn that. And there is a game called ending letter game. That is where you can teach geographical country names. If I say India, the next student has to start with the last letter of India, that is A. He says Azerbaijan. And the next student starts with N, and the game goes on. And students get so involved in it. Same thing, pre-primary children can use the ending letter game for 3-letter words. Other games are paper-based games. Now, We may play and know of different games, but how the teacher uses her creativity to match that game to her class or her age group, it is what matters a lot. I can hear some noise. Please mute yourself. So let's take musical chair, for example. Most of us have played that in the party, isn't it? It's a party game. That can be converted to an educational game with just one change in instruction. You need to say, when the music stops, sit on the chairs that have adverbs. That's it. And you have other games like join the dots. Yes, join the dots. Pre-primary children use it to join 1, 2, 3 ABC, isn't it? The same picture with 1, 2, 3 or ABC can be changed to count in 8s or count in 12s. That is answers of 8 times tables or answers of 10 time tables. And students join them and learn the tables happily. Some other games, as I told you, are movement-based games like treasure hunt. You all may have heard of treasure hunt. And what else? You all can also think and also add it in the chat box. There is this game called hop on games. Like I told you, I showed you the picture of the classroom to make it a resource room. You can write, if your subject is social science, you can write several social science vocabulary on the floor and ask students to hop only on the planets. They will enjoy it. Science teacher can ask them to hop only on the scientific words. They'll love doing it, and you'll see the class come alive with learning. Moving on, one frequently asked question about teaching learning resource is, okay, how do we select these teaching material for our children? And it is answered here very clearly. I would like each participant to read one factor to keep in mind. And I want everyone else to listen carefully.
Participants, would you please raise your hand? Niji. Yes, ma'am, you're unmuted. Niji, I can only read the device name. Niji is iPhone. Can you unmute yourself? I believe no. Urvi, ma'am, I've unmuted you. Could you please do that? Could you please start reading?
The first point, right, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Student factors such as their age, level, background, interest, learning styles, and abilities have to be kept in mind. Choose materials that are appropriate, engaging, challenging for your students, and that address their diverse needs and preferences.
Thank you, ma'am. Jyoti, ma'am, you may please start reading. Jyoti Ganeshnath.
Okay, I think some of the
curriculum
educators had...
factors, select teaching materials that is in alignment with the curriculum, standards and objectives that you are expected to follow and achieve. Materials must promote inquiry-based learning, critical thinking, creativity, and social responsibility. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Bhavna, ma'am, you may unmute and start reading.
Content factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Content factor. Choose teaching material that are accurate, current, and comprehensive, and that cover the essential topics and concepts that your students need to learn. Materials that are clear, coherent, and attractive, and that use effective pedagogical strategies and methods to facilitate learning.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Geeta, you may unmute and start reading.
Resource factors. Choose teaching materials that are accessible, adaptable, and sustainable, and that fit within your budget and time constraints. Materials that are compatible with the equipment and infrastructure that you have in your classroom or school, and that is easy to maintain and update.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, that was quite a lot of information. But if you keep these things in mind while selecting your teaching materials, I think you'll find it very interesting and appropriate, and you'll be able to present it to students easily. Now, one thing a teacher may wonder is, okay, do I really need to spend such a lot of time? How can I present these many teaching resources that I learned? We learned about 8 teaching resources, isn't it? That is the games, the songs, what else? The materials. What else did you remember and write? Can you type or can you think of it and just start answering, please, in the chat box? What were the 8 learning materials that we discussed today? The resources.
Miss Sarita, you can read.
Yes,
There are a
yes.
lot of
Story, interactive charts, games, songs, audio visuals, implementation.
Classroom as a resource. Absolutely.
Songs, games
And
are the, yeah. Songs and games seem to be the community as a resource.
yes, dear
repetitive, yeah.
educators, all this time is really worthwhile because you got what we spoke about. So now, how do we use all these resources? Coming to think of it doesn't mean that you have to sing throughout the class or play the games throughout the class. Now I'm giving you a presentation. We played the memory game for hardly around 25 seconds, isn't it? Yes. Then we sang the song for about maybe 2 minutes. So if you can include each resource, at least a minimum of 2 to 3 resources in every lesson plan of yours, you'll see how much the children enjoy your class and they will look forward to coming to school and also go back and talk to their parents about what all they enjoyed in your classroom. Now that covers the first objective of today. That is about the teaching learning resources. Moving on to the second objective. What can you see in this picture? What is the name of this material? Can you type in the chat box, please?
It's already here, jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, it's a jigsaw puzzle. And about this material, there are students of all age groups who love to build puzzles, small ones, big ones. But what they like about it is that they can do it independently. There's no one there to help them. If they go wrong, they'll find different pieces of puzzle and put it and correct themselves, isn't it? This is a garden maze. Now, if you leave students here, they get the thrill of finding their way out. And if they take the wrong route, how do they know? They'll come to a dead end and then they'll find different routes. And they get so excited because they can do it all by themselves. They can enjoy this activity because they can do it independently. So these two materials that you just saw has an element in them that is of great interest to students, and that is the element of self-correction. Now imagine if we could introduce this self-correction concept in our classrooms, how would the students feel? Now you can see the student has been given the opportunity to correct himself or herself. So how do they develop? What increases when we give students the opportunity of self-correction? I would like some answers in the chat boxes. What increases when we give students the opportunity of self-correction?
Confidence.
Yes.
Rational thinking.
Absolutely.
Retention.
Perfect.
Critical thinking, collaboration.
Yes.
Problem solving, creativity. Acceptance. Communication.
Yes, it's wonderful to see different minds working today in this extra mile session at the same time. It increases the self-esteem, the confidence, the independent nature of students. It is really a wonderful skill to introduce to students. So, and let's find out how we can do it. There was a teacher who was very annoyed with her student because he was constantly scoring less in her subject. So she walked into the classroom and she said, Rahul, do you know how many of your friends score 100 marks? I will give you 3 seconds to answer that question. And the students immediately thought of it And he said, ma'am, I scored 100 marks. And she said, oh, really? How? And he said, ma'am, I scored 30 in English, 40 in science, and 30 in maths, and all put together, I scored 100. The whole class bursted out with laughter. And the teacher was more annoyed. And the student said, ma'am, you gave me only 3 seconds to answer this question. So, dear educators, let's come to the point number 1 of self-correction. Can anyone read it, please?
Educators, we are here ready for you. If you would like to unmute. Yes, Anupama ma'am.
Self-correction. First, provide time, clues, and rephrase the question.
Yes, Mrs. Anupama. When you ask a question, if a student goes wrong, instead of the teacher trying to correct the students, give few more seconds to the students to correct his own answer. Provide time. If the student is not getting it, give some more clues. If the student is yet not getting it, don't give up. Rephrase the question, make it simpler so that the student can finally give the answer, because the student's success, let's remember, is the teacher's success. And these few more seconds that you're giving the student makes a whole lot of difference, because you're not only using a technique of correction here, but you're helping that child build the life skill of self-correction. Yes, dear teachers, it is a life skill that you are building. Moving on to the next point. Someone else who hasn't been reading, I request you all to start reading it.
Jesna ma'am, I have unmuted you. You can read. Jesna? Yes.
Ask the students to look for errors.
Yes. After you give an exercise and students have completed it, don't jump in to correct them. Allow them to look for their own errors before you call out the answer. The third point.
Miss Niji, I have unmuted you.
Yes, ma'am. Teacher indicates that there is an error.
Absolutely. As soon as the teacher finishes explanation and she gives
that
yes.
Ma'am, she's muted, yeah.
Yeah. The teacher indicates that there's an error. After the explanation is done and the students start doing an exercise, the teacher becomes a facilitator. She starts moving around the classroom and observing. And if she notices that most of the students are getting question number 3 and 5 wrong, she indicates that, okay, children, you need to check question 3 and 5 once more and have student correct their own errors. That's how she indicates it. Now, can someone read all the 3 points that we just now discussed about self-correction?
Bindu ma'am, you're unmuted. Is Bindu Jose?
Hello ma'am, good evening. Provide time, clues, rephrasing questions. Ask students to look for errors. Teacher indicates that there is an error.
Yes. These are 3 points it is worthwhile remembering. Moving on to the next technique of correction. The first technique was self-correction. Now, seeing this picture, can you guess what kind of correction this could be? Can I get some answers in the chat box, please? What kind of correction is this? This is not self-correction, but you can see students there.
Peer correction. That seems to be the answer, ma'am. Peer
Yes,
correction.
that is the answer. Peer correction. That is, peers are none other than the classmates of a students. There are times when a teacher wants to explain or ask higher order thinking questions or questions that are advanced, and she knows that maybe half the class may not know. At that point, instead of asking and correcting students herself, she can have the peers, that is the classmates, help them answer. And this is taken more comfortably by students. Let's see how we can do it. Please read out the first point of peer correction.
Do we have people who have raised their hands? Okay.
Eliciting responses from the class to the board.
Yes, the teacher can ask everybody to answer together after telling a question and then write the correct answer on the board. In the process, the students get to listen to the correct answer from their classmates and they correct themselves because of their peers. The
Ms.
next
Geeta, you
point
are
of peer
unmuted.
correction, please.
Ms. Geeta, you are unmuted.
Students brainstorming in group. Students brain.
Yes, dear, you're right. Students brainstorming in groups. After an exercise is completed, bench-wise, students can check their answers. And mind you, the word brainstorming is written. They can also discuss why that answer is correct. And you can see how much they enjoy peer correction.
Ms.
The
Shubha?
third point of
Ms.
peer
Shubha?
correction.
Ms. Shubha, I've unmuted you. Could you please read out?
Let's go to the next, Niji Saifo.
Niji, you're unmuted.
Okay, ma'am. Students exchange their books, discuss and correct.
Yes, this is pair work where students can exchange books with each other and they can correct and also discuss the answers. It is self-explanatory. Now, one thing we need to remember, dear educators, students are not aware of peer correction. They don't have experience correcting each other. So for teacher to apply this technique, they need to give some instructions or rules in the beginning of this process. If they don't give instruction and ask them to correct each other, it leads to this. So, but we need to remember that peer correction is a great process, although it may be slightly challenging for the educator. If we can have over a period of time, if we can have students learn to correct each other or do correction in a group, we are encouraging teamwork, which will take them a long way in their work life also, isn't it? I would like teachers to read out the 3 points of peer correction that we discussed.
Quickly, we are ready to unmute educators. Bindu, ma'am, you are unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Eliciting responses from the class to the board, students brainstorming in groups, students exchange their books, discuss and correct.
Yes. Moving on to the last technique of correction for today. That is, can you guess what it can be and type it in the chat box, please. What kind of correction technique is this? Please type it in the chat box. What kind of correction technique? You can guess anything. There's no right or wrong answer.
Guidance.
Okay. Other answers, please. I want, as I said, I want everybody to write their answers. It doesn't matter if it's the same word.
Teacher guidance, individual feedback.
Okay. Other answers?
Assistance by teachers and
elder guide, individual correction, support. Wonderful, dear educators. In your own way, you have given your answers. The last type of correction that we are discussing today is teacher correction. We discussed self-correction, peer correction. Now at the last, we are discussing teacher correction. There are times when the teacher wants to present an altogether new topic or a new skill to students, which students may not be aware of at all. So at this point, she may feel my children are not ready for either self-correction or peer correction. At this time, yes, teachers can pitch in and correct the students directly, but there is a way to do it. Once, when I was observing a class as a coordinator, and the teacher asked a question to the students, and most of the students gave the wrong answer. This teacher felt offended and annoyed, and she said, "Students, all of you are giving me the wrong answer. It looks like the only thing that you know to do correctly nowadays is have lunch during lunchtime and snacks during snacks time." Oh God, some of the children even laughed because she said it jovially. But dear educators, this kind of response is not at all advisable where you get offended or annoyed. It's a learning process, just like the way we are learning today. So moving on to teacher correction. Let's see how we can do teacher correction. Please read out the first point.
Devika, Miss Devika, you're unmuted.
Teacher correction. Say good try and then tell the correct answer.
Yes, when you ask a question and you get a wrong answer, instead of saying you are wrong, we can say, okay, Rahul, good try, keep up the spirit. But the correct answer is dash. And you'll see that there's no offense there. Next point of teacher correction.
Miss Jesna, you're unmuted.
Okay, ma'am. Remodel the concept.
As soon as the teacher realizes that half my class has not understood the concept, it is not sufficient just to repeat it in the same way again. It doesn't make sense, isn't it? At this point, the teacher needs to remodel the concept, not just repeat it, with the help of some drawing or some material. And in the process, she's correcting the children. I hope you got what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, now if this was your paper being corrected, how would you feel? It looks like the teacher has almost fought with your paper. And this kind of correction sometimes leads to complete student shutdown or demotivation. Can someone read out the third point of teacher correction? Third point of teacher correction?
Ma'am, I can't see any hands. So correction
Okay,
to
no
be
problem.
subtle.
Yes.
Correction to be subtle.
Yes. When you're doing written correction, just one underline below the wrong phrase or just two strokes below a spelling mistake is sufficient for students to understand that there is a mistake. So that kind of correction is more soothing to students and it allows for students to take their correction positively. Nowadays, you see there are so many children who are sensitive because they are pampered at home. And they're also very sensitive when they see some mistakes being made or too many red marks on the papers. So this kind of correction is more soothing. Mrs. Sarita, can you read out all the 3 points of teacher correction?
Yeah. Say good try and then tell the correct answer. Remodel the concept. Correction to be subtle.
Yes. So we discussed 3 types of correction, that is self-correction, peer correction, and teacher correction, with priority being given to self-correction for most of the age groups. Because as I told you, everything starts during the early ages. So in your own way, start building the self-correction skill in students and move on to other correction techniques. So that is all for today, dear educators. Now the forum is open to questions. If you have any, you can type it in the chat box or raise your hands and ask questions, and I would be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Deepa ma'am. That was indeed a resourceful session, all about using resources. Participants, we are ready to take your questions. You may raise your hand. We'll unmute you.
Deepa ma'am, you can close the PPT.
Okay.
Dear participants, if you have any doubts, Deepa ma'am will be more than happy to dispel them and clarify them. You may raise your hands.
And they can also share their inputs with regards to the topic.
Yes. Ma'am, there's a question. Mr. Aditya, would you like to unmute yourself? His questions, could you guide for an activity for class 10?
Class 9 or
And
10
9,
for
class
social
9
science,
and
is it?
10 for social science.
Okay, I may have one quick answer ready for it. Like once, for instance, a teacher in social science class had the children actually enact the situation related to social studies. It was about the northern western regions that they were learning in their geography textbooks, and what are the main things in the northern region of India was the topic. So she gave each group of students one region, northern region, southern region, eastern region, like that, and asked them to do a drama related to it with whatever material they can get from home. And she called me to observe that, and it was really amazing. It was really amazing. So that is one thing I can think of. There are several things that can be done for that particular classes too.
Any more questions, dear participants? And there was one question a while away. What about science and storytelling? How can we have storytelling and science together?
You can create an imaginary story with the scientific topic that you would like to discuss. Just whatever, see, that is where the teacher uses her creativity. Okay. Now, be it math or science. Now, can you tell me the topic or that you want to explain, or any scientific topic if you are talking about planets, or if you're that is social science, so any other scientific topics you're talking about, physics, that is movement, pressure, those kind of physics topics, you can create a story out of that particular topic about applying pressure. Pressure is a physics topic, isn't it? As to, and how you went to a particular market and you saw how everything is being loaded into that particular lorry. Your father had taken you to this wonderful marketplace to see it for yourself, and you saw many wage workers somewhere moving the cartons, somewhere lifting the cartons, somewhere loading the cartons, and different kinds of pressures were being applied in different ways. So like this, you carry on, convert that into an imaginary story and tell students, and you'll see how much they love listening to it. Now take this thing of gravity itself. Even about gravity, you can convert it into a creative story and tell them. There is one example of the apple falling down and things like that. And there have been many movies that you see, dear educators. Every time you watch a movie, just note down how it can be used. Every time you watch a serial, note down some nice things that you can use for those things. Every time you come across an incident, be excited enough. Okay, fine, I can use this incident to talk about it in my class, and you'll see how nicely it works.
There's another question on the chat box. How can we make lower classes more interactive?
Lower classes more interactive, is it?
Yeah.
Occupation is the key. Let us take the classic example of today's session itself. We try to keep you occupied by making you participate in the session, participate in the form of reading, participate in the form of answering in the chat box, participate in the form of thinking, participate in the form of seeing the pictures. So that is how you make lower classes interesting. And for lower classes again, for them, their sense organs are very, very active. And up to the age of 6, children are highly intelligent. They can learn 3, 4 languages. And in a Montessori classroom, a pure Montessori classroom, children learn arithmetic operations up to 4 digits. That is addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division. And they are able to do all that with materials. That is the reason why I explained about learning resources today. Think of simple learning resources for students. If you, whatever concept you want to teach them, always plan a material for it, for their particular age group. And that time you spend on it will be really worthwhile, because as soon as they use their senses to do it, it will be useful for them. And another thing we need to remember is the concentration of the younger children is very short. Every 10 minutes, the concentration comes down. So we need to keep on changing the teaching process every 10 minutes, like the way we changed today. After 5 minutes, play a video in your this one. We didn't discuss audio visual today, isn't it? Audio visual is a very muscular helping hand of a teacher. There are schools which have smart boards in every class. Some schools have TVs in the classroom. Some school have only one AV room that can be shared. But if teachers really want to use audio visual to show educational video, play some games for 5 minutes, so crystal clear pictures, the option is to use your laptop. We learned that during the COVID time, isn't it? Whether it is small screen or big screen, it doesn't matter. Children enjoy that. So every 5 minutes for lower classes, keep changing the teaching process to teach the same concept. Use a game. After 5 minutes, use some hands-on activity, show an educational this one, explain it. After explanation, in between, the explanations have to take place, and they will really enjoy it.
Thank you so much for that explanation, ma'am. Any more questions, dear participants? Would you like to share your experiences?
So yeah, we can go about winding up.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Ms. Deepa, as I said before also, it was a splendid session, and our participants were so happy to have been given an opportunity to participate and feel included. That was a very, very stupendously planned lesson, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for Ms. Deepa Dharmapuri Shivaduraya for broadening our horizons and for guiding us through numerous ways to make our teaching processes more meaningful and effective. Dear participants, kindly note that the certificate link and feedback form have been already posted. Requested to kindly fill up the form with all necessary details. I, Sarita Warrior, along with all of us here at Extra Mile, would like to thank Ms. Deepa once again for her gracious presence and an enriching experience. I would also like to thank Dr. Abdul Salam for his magnanimous support and guidance. Thank you, Biju sir, for your gracious presence. And most importantly, thank you to all the participants for your enthusiasm and active participation. I sincerely hope we earn the privilege of your time. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Sarita. Thank you for the nice moderation. Thank you, dear educators, for your participation. And congratulations to Deepa ma'am for presenting in a very splendid way. I was observing, dear educators, actually, the topic is resourceful teaching. I was observing the methodology adopted by Ms. Deepa. So, in conclusion, I should say that what she has, done is picking up the resources from within and making the participants engaged, keeping them engaged. So that is a wonderful, use of resources. Students are our resources. There are lots of resources in the classroom, and most of the webinars you can see it is one-way traffic. So I am very particular that webinars, I don't call it webinars, I call it web training. So this web training should be very interactive, whereby the participants get an opportunity to present their thoughts and engage themselves in the learning. That is what has happened today. So thank you so much. We will be coming with a lot of topic, and we have a good number of resource persons waiting for delivering their topics. So thank you so much, all educators. Keep connected. Actually, every Saturday or whatever web training sessions we conduct, we get a lot of takeaways. Though we say at the first sight we may think that yes, we know this and there is no need to attend the session, but later on when we share the videos and all, participants do come back and say that, So thank you so much. If I had not watched it, I would have missed a lot. So that is what is about the extra mile sessions. We have more than Ms. Deepa. We have more than 1,000 registrations today, and the room was to its fullest capacity. And the rest of the educators will receive this video, the recorded, so that they can watch at their convenient time. So thank you so much, everyone, Mr. Biju S. Pillai, for your help, for your participation, and everyone for being connected. So thank you so much once again, Ms. Deepa, Ms. Sarita, and everybody. Let's wind up. Have a good night.
You're welcome, and thank you, sir. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Mrs. Sarita, for the help.
Ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Biju.
Thank you, sir. Good night.